I stood in the doorway, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of my son. It had been 3 years since we last spoke, and I had almost given up hope of ever seeing him again. The room was a mess, with piles of dirty laundry and unwashed dishes stacked up in the sink. But then I saw him, sitting on the couch, staring blankly at a stack of letters on the coffee table. My heart sank as I realized what they were: debt collection letters. I walked over to him, trying to remain calm, and asked, "How did this happen?" He just shrugged and said, "I thought I could handle it myself." I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but I pushed it down. This wasn't the time for blame or recrimination. This was the time for action. I sat down next to him on the couch and took a deep breath. "We'll figure this out together, okay?" I said, trying to sound calmer than I felt. He nodded, and for a moment, we just sat there in silence, staring at the letters. I couldn't believe it had come to this. My son, who had always been so responsible and level-headed, was now drowning in debt. I thought back to all the times I had offered to help him, to all the times he had pushed me away. And now, here we were, facing a $35,000 debt that seemed insurmountable. But I was determined to help him, no matter what. I would do whatever it took to get him back on his feet, to help him pay off this debt and start fresh. I just didn't know where to start. As we sat there, I had an idea. It was a crazy idea, one that would require a lot of sacrifice and hard work. But I knew it was the only way to save my son from this $35,000 debt that was suffocating him. "I have an idea," I said, turning to him with a determined look on my face. "We'll sell the house, and use the money to pay off your debt. We'll start fresh, together." He looked at me, shocked, and I could see the fear in his eyes. But I knew it was the only way. And so, with a newfound sense of determination, we set out on a journey to pay off his debt and start anew. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to do whatever it took to save my son. As we set out on our journey to pay off his debt, I couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation. I had always been a proud man, and the thought of selling my home, the place where I had raised my family and made so many memories, was a difficult pill to swallow. But I knew it was the only way to save my son. We spent the next few days getting the house ready to sell. We cleaned and scrubbed, trying to make it look as presentable as possible. I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness as I looked around at the familiar walls and floors. This was where my son had taken his first steps, where my wife and I had laughed and loved. The thought of leaving it all behind was almost too much to bear. But I pushed on, determined to see this through. We put the house on the market, and within a few days, we had several interested buyers. We negotiated and haggled, trying to get the best price possible. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, we accepted an offer. The day of the closing arrived, and I felt a sense of anxiety wash over me. I had never sold a house before, and the thought of signing away the deed to my beloved home was daunting. But I steeled myself and walked into the lawyer's office, determined to see this through. The paperwork was endless, and I felt my anxiety grow with each passing minute. My son was quiet, his eyes fixed on the floor as he signed his name to the documents. I could sense his shame and embarrassment, and my heart went out to him. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the papers were signed, and the house was sold. I felt a sense of relief wash over me, mixed with a healthy dose of sadness. We had done it. We had sold the house, and we would use the money to pay off my son's debt. But as we walked out of the lawyer's office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The buyer, a young couple with an eager smile, seemed too good to be true. And the price they had offered, while fair, had been lower than I had expected. I pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the task at hand. We had to use the money from the sale of the house to pay off my son's debt. We went to the bank, where I withdrew the funds and handed them over to the debt collector. The debt collector, a stern-looking woman with a clipboard, took the money with a curt nod. "This will take care of the debt," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "But I must warn you, there may be other debts that we are not aware of. It's possible that your son may still be in financial trouble." I felt a chill run down my spine as I looked at my son. He was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. The debt collector shrugged. Sometimes, people hide debts from their families. It's possible that your son may have other debts that he hasn't told you about. I felt a wave of anger wash over me. Why hadn't my son told me about these debts? Why had he kept them a secret? I turned to him, my eyes blazing with anger. What else haven't you told me? I demanded, my voice low and menacing. My son took a step back, his eyes wide with fear. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. But I knew he was lying. I could see it in his eyes. He was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what it was. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. We would get to the bottom of this, I was sure of it. But for now, I had to focus on getting my son back on his feet. Let's get out of here, I said, turning to my son. We have a lot of work to do. As we walked out of the bank, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were in for a long and difficult road ahead. But I was determined to see it through, no matter what. As we walked out of the bank, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. The debt collector's words had left a lingering doubt in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my son was hiding something from me. I looked at him, trying to read his expression, but he just shrugged and looked away. Let's go get some lunch, I said, trying to break the tension. We can talk about what's next. My son nodded, and we walked to a nearby cafe. As we sat down at a table, I couldn't help but notice the way he avoided eye contact. It was as if he was hiding something, and I was determined to find out what it was. So, what's the plan? I asked, trying to sound casual. How are we going to get you back on your feet? My son shrugged. I don't know. I guess I just need to find a job and start paying off some of these debts. I nodded, but my mind was racing. There was something he wasn't telling me, something he was hiding. I could sense it. As we ate our lunch, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of frustration. Why was my son being so evasive? What was he hiding? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Listen, son, I said, my voice low and serious. I know you're hiding something from me. What is it? My son looked up, his eyes flashing with fear. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. But I knew he was lying. I could see it in his eyes. Son, I've been around the block a few times, I said, my voice firm but gentle. I know when someone is hiding something from me. You need to tell me what's going on. My son looked away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Okay, fine, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'll tell you. But you have to promise not to freak out. I nodded, my heart racing with anticipation. I promise, I said. Just tell me. My son took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the floor. I've been in trouble with some people, he said. Some people who aren't very nice. I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of trouble? What kind of people? What kind of trouble? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. My son hesitated, his eyes darting back and forth. I owe them money, he said. A lot of money. And they're not very happy about it. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. Who were these people? What did they want? Who are they? I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. My son looked up, his eyes wide with fear. I don't know if I should tell you, he said. They might come after you too. I felt a cold dread creeping over me. What had my son gotten himself into? Son, you need to tell me what's going on, I said, my voice firm but gentle. I can help you, but I need to know what's happening. My son looked away, his shoulders slumping in defeat. Okay, he said. I'll tell you. But you have to promise to protect yourself. I nodded, my heart racing with anticipation. I promise, I said. Just tell me. My son took a deep breath, his eyes fixed on the floor. I owe money to a loan shark, he said. A loan shark with connections to some very bad people. I felt a wave of fear wash over me. A loan shark? With connections to bad people? What kind of bad people? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. My son looked up, his eyes wide with fear. The kind of people who will stop at nothing to get what they want, he said. The kind of people who will hurt anyone who gets in their way. I felt a cold dread creeping over me. What had my son gotten himself into? And how was I going to get him out of it? I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I processed what my son had just told me. A loan shark with connections to bad people? This was getting out of control. I needed to think fast, to come up with a plan to get my son out of this situation before it was too late. Okay, son, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. We need to think this through. We need to figure out how to get you out of this situation. My son nodded, his eyes still wide with fear. I don't know what to do, Dad, he said. I feel like I'm in over my head. I put a hand on his shoulder, trying to reassure him. We'll figure it out together, okay? We'll get through this. But as I looked at my son, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were running out of time. The loan shark and his connections were not going to wait forever for their money. We needed to act fast. Son, I need you to tell me everything, I said. I need to know how much you owe, and who these people are. I need to know everything. My son nodded, taking a deep breath. Okay, Dad, he said. I owe $50,000 to a loan shark named Vinny. He's been threatening me, saying that if I don't pay up, he'll hurt me and my family. I felt a cold dread creeping over me. $50,000 was a lot of money, and I knew that we didn't have it. And Vinny, the loan shark, sounded like a ruthless man who would stop at nothing to get what he wanted. Okay, son, I said. We'll figure out a way to pay Vinny back. But in the meantime, I need you to stay safe. I need you to stay away from Vinny and his people. My son nodded, his eyes still wide with fear. I'll be careful, Dad, he said. I promise. But as we left the cafe and walked back to our car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched. I looked around, but I didn't see anyone suspicious. Still, the feeling lingered. As we drove home, I couldn't help but think about Vinny and his connections. Who were they? And what would they do if we didn't pay them back? When we got home, I sat down at the kitchen table and started making phone calls. I needed to come up with a plan to pay Vinny back, and I needed to do it fast. But as I was on the phone, I heard a knock at the door. I looked at my son, who was sitting on the couch, and saw the fear in his eyes. It's them, he whispered. They've found us. I felt a wave of fear wash over me as I got up to answer the door. Who was it? And what did they want? As I opened the door, I saw two men standing on the porch. They were big and menacing, and they looked like they meant business. Can I help you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. The men didn't say anything. Instead, they just handed me a note and turned around and walked away. I looked at the note, and my heart sank. It was a message from Vinny, and it was clear that he was not going to wait any longer for his money. You have 24 hours to pay me back, the note read. If you don't, there will be consequences. I felt a cold dread creeping over me as I looked at my son. We were running out of time, and I didn't know what to do. I felt a wave of panic wash over me as I read the note. 24 hours was not a lot of time, and I knew that we didn't have the money to pay Vinny back. I looked at my son, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and desperation in his eyes. What are we going to do, Dad? He asked, his voice shaking. I took a deep breath and tried to think. We needed to come up with a plan, and we needed to do it fast. We'll figure something out, I said, trying to sound calm. We just need to think. But as I looked at my son, I knew that we were running out of options. We had already sold the house, and we didn't have any other assets that we could use to pay Vinny back. I was starting to feel like we were trapped, like there was no way out of this situation. I sat down at the kitchen table and started brainstorming. I thought about all of our options, but none of them seemed like they would work. We could try to borrow money from someone else, but that would just put us further in debt. We could try to negotiate with Vinny, but I didn't think that would work either. He seemed like a man who was not interested in negotiations. As I sat there, I heard a knock at the door. It was a soft knock, not like the loud, insistent knock that the men had used earlier. I got up to answer it, wondering who it could be. When I opened the door, I was surprised to see a woman standing on the porch. She was a tall, slender woman with long, curly hair and a kind face. "Hi," she said, smiling. "My name is Sarah. I'm a friend of your son's." I was surprised. My son hadn't mentioned anyone named Sarah. "Come in," I said, stepping aside to let her in. As she walked into the house, I couldn't help but notice that she seemed nervous. She was glancing around the room, as if she was looking for something. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling a sense of unease. "I need to talk to your son," she said, her voice low. "It's about Vinny." I felt a surge of fear. What did she know about Vinny? "What do you know about Vinny?" I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. Sarah hesitated, as if she was unsure of what to say. "I know that he's not a good man," she said finally. "I know that he's been causing trouble for a lot of people." I felt a sense of relief. Maybe Sarah could help us. Maybe she knew something that we didn't. "What do you know about Vinny's connections?" I asked, my voice urgent. Sarah hesitated again, as if she was unsure of what to say. "I know that he's connected to some powerful people," she said finally. "People who will stop at nothing to get what they want." I felt a cold dread creeping over me. We were in over our heads, and I didn't know how we were going to get out of this situation. As I looked at Sarah, I saw a determined look in her eyes. "I'm going to help you," she said. "I'm going to help you get out of this situation." I felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could get out of this after all. I looked at Sarah with a mixture of hope and skepticism. How could she possibly help us? What did she know about Vinny and his connections? "What do you know about Vinny's connections?" I asked, my voice urgent. Sarah hesitated, as if she was unsure of how much to reveal. "I know that he's connected to a powerful organization," she said finally. "An organization that will stop at nothing to get what they want." I felt a chill run down my spine. What kind of organization could be that powerful? And what did they want with my son? What do they want with my son? I asked, my voice tight with anxiety. Sarah hesitated again, as if she was unsure of how to answer. "I don't know," she said finally. "But I think it has something to do with the money he owes Vinny." I felt a surge of fear. If Vinny's organization was after my son, we were in grave danger. We needed to get out of there, and fast. "We need to leave," I said, my voice urgent. "We need to get out of here before they find us." Sarah nodded, her eyes wide with fear. "I know a place we can go," she said. "A place where we can hide out for a while." I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my son and followed Sarah out of the house, not knowing where we were going or what lay ahead. As we walked, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Who was Sarah, and what did she know about Vinny's organization? And where were we going? The questions swirled in my head as we walked, but I didn't have time to ask them. We were running out of time, and we needed to find a place to hide before Vinny's organization found us. We walked for what felt like hours, the tension building with every step. I could feel eyes watching us, and I knew that we were being followed. But I didn't dare look back, afraid of what I might see. Finally, we arrived at a small, run-down apartment building. Sarah led us inside, and we found ourselves in a cramped, dimly lit room. "This is it," she said, her voice low. "This is where we'll hide out for a while." I looked around, trying to take in our surroundings. The room was small, with a single bed and a small kitchenette. It was not much, but it was better than being out on the streets. As I looked at my son, I saw a mixture of fear and relief in his eyes. He was scared, but he was also grateful to be safe. I felt a surge of love for him, and I knew that I would do anything to protect him. But as I looked at Sarah, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. Who was she, and what did she want from us? And could we trust her? I didn't have time to ask these questions, not yet. We needed to focus on survival, on staying one step ahead of Vinny's organization. But as I looked at Sarah, I knew that I would be keeping a close eye on her. I would be watching her, waiting to see what she would do next. And if she betrayed us, I would be ready. As we settled into our new hiding spot, I couldn't help but feel a sense of unease. We were safe for the moment, but I knew that Vinny's organization would not give up easily. They would keep searching for us, and eventually, they would find us. But for now, we were safe. And as I looked at my son, I saw a sense of relief in his eyes. He was safe, and that was all that mattered. As the days passed, we settled into a routine. We would spend our days hiding out in the apartment, waiting for nightfall so that we could venture out and find food. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to notice something strange. Sarah was acting suspiciously. She would often leave the apartment, claiming that she needed to go out and find food. But I would see her talking to people on the street, people who looked like they were from Vinny's organization. I didn't say anything to my son, but I knew that I had to be careful. I couldn't trust Sarah, not completely. And then, one night, I saw her. I saw her talking to Vinny himself. They were standing on the street, talking in hushed tones. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I knew that it couldn't be good. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. Sarah had been playing us all along. She had been working with Vinny, using us to get to my son. I knew that I had to act fast. I had to get my son out of there, away from Sarah and Vinny's organization. I waited until nightfall, and then I made my move. I grabbed my son and we ran, out of the apartment and into the night. We didn't stop running until we were blocks away, until we were sure that we had left Sarah and Vinny's organization behind. As we stopped to catch our breath, I looked at my son. He was safe, and that was all that mattered. But as we stood there, I saw something that made my heart skip a beat. It was the police, surrounding Vinny and his organization. They had been caught, and they would pay for what they had done. I felt a sense of satisfaction, a sense of justice. Vinny and his organization had been brought down, and my son was safe. As we walked away from the scene, I knew that we would never forget this experience. We had been through hell and back, but we had made it out alive. And as we walked, I saw something that made me smile. It was the look on my son's face, a look of relief and gratitude. He was safe, and that was all that mattered. We walked in silence for a while, enjoying the peace and quiet of the night. And then, my son spoke up. "Thanks, Dad," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Thanks for saving me." I smiled, feeling a sense of pride and love. "I'll always be here for you," I said. "I'll always protect you." As we walked, I knew that we would never forget this experience. We had been through hell and back, but we had made it out alive. And as we walked, I felt a sense of satisfaction, a sense of justice. Vinny and his organization had been brought down, and my son was safe. We had made it through the storm, and we had come out stronger on the other side. As we walked, I knew that we would always be there for each other. We would always stand together, no matter what. And as we walked, I felt a sense of peace. We had made it through the darkness, and we had found the light. We had found our way, and we would never let go. Epilogue. It's been years since that night, years since we escaped from Vinny's organization. My son and I are still close, still standing together. We've been through a lot, but we've always come out on top. And as I look back on that experience, I know that it was a turning point for us. It was a chance for us to grow, to learn, and to become stronger. We've had our ups and downs, like any family. But we've always stuck together, always supported each other. And as I look at my son now, I know that he's a good man. He's kind, smart, and strong. He's the man I always knew he could be. And as I look at myself, I know that I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, proud of the man I've become. I've made mistakes, like any person. But I've always tried to do my best, always tried to be a good father. And as I look back on that experience, I know that it was a chance for me to grow, to learn, and to become a better person. I'm grateful for that experience, grateful for the lessons I learned. And as I look at my son, I know that I'll always be there for him, always stand by him. We've been through a lot, but we've always come out on top. And as I look to the future, I know that we'll face challenges, we'll face obstacles. But I also know that we'll overcome them, that we'll always stand together. We're a team, a family. And nothing can ever break that.